Let me know if this sounds familiar. You purchase a new art book recommended by your favorite art creator. It finally arrives and you're excited to soak in all that new information and dive right into learning. Only to end up reading the first few pages and eventually abandoning it to gather dust at the back of your shelf, never to be opened again. Sound familiar? Look, I'm not here to judge you, okay? We've all been there. I know I have. Trust me, I've been there. With so many artists, myself included, constantly emphasizing the importance of using art books to improve our skills, not to mention the incredible amount of art books out there to choose from. It can be pretty overwhelming. I will admit, it can be overwhelming. However, the reason I and most artists still stand by this method is pretty simple. It really does work if you know how to make it work. So in today's video, I'll tell you how to make the most out of your art books, common pitfalls and misunderstandings to avoid when using art books, and some of my personal favorite tips that I incorporate and has helped me when studying with art books. I'm just gonna give a heads up now because there's so many R's and L's and like pronunciations and words in that for some reason my Nigerian accent just can't keep up. So if I mess up, I'm sorry in advance because I'm trying so hard to record this video and I just keep stumbling on my words. So there are various type of art books out there, from art of books to art educational or instructional books to general artist collections. Each of these art books serve different purposes and focus on different subjects. Art of books, for example, can focus on the art of an artist's life. It can share their journey from how they started off as a beginner artist to a collection of their work. We also have art of video games or animation books, which focuses on the behind the scenes artwork that was made for the game, the movie, the animation, whatever. We also have general artist collections that just focus a collection or gallery of artworks from a specific artist that they've made along the years, or a body of work that falls under a specific tone, genre, collection, thematic, you know what I mean. In this video, however, I'm mainly going to focus on art educational/instructional books. These books are more informative and focus on teaching principles, theories, and various fundamental art topics. Art informative books come in various types as well. We have like step-by-step books, we have tutorial books, books that just show an artist's workflow, books that go more in depth into very niche topics, and books that focus on overall fundamental topics. If you're asking, why do we need art books? What's the need for art books? They're heavy, they're clunky, they take up space. Well, other than the fact that they are just genuinely aesthetically pleasing to look at, art books have a lot of valuable benefits. I've mentioned in my previous videos already, but art books go more in depth into specific topics, unlike YouTube videos which try to condense a lot of information into one short time limit. An art book can expand and give you a lot more information about a particular subject matter. Art books are also usually more focused, so rather than getting a broad overview of different tiny aspects of different subjects, most art books are very niche and will focus on one topic at a time, or topics that work well to learn at the same time. Art books also have structures. You get one art book and it's gonna take you from point A to point B without needing any external source. The main reason why everyone advocates for art books is that it's simply just deeper knowledge, more information provided at a more structured pace. However, most people assume that once they get their hands on an art book, all their answers are solved, and that's not the case. As I mentioned in the beginning, most professional artists always encourage studying with art books, but before you run out there and waste all your money buying lots and lots of art books, because art books are expensive, I want you to keep these in mind. There are a few common mistakes and misunderstandings that artists have and make when it comes to studying using art books. The first one is not treating the art book as an educational resource. You know how in secondary school you all have textbooks for different classes? Yes. Treat your art book as a textbook. I know for most artists, it's very weird for us to see art in a technical way like school and like workbooks, but honestly, that's simply what it is. It's a textbook. You don't just open a math textbook read the equations and just look through and flip through and look at the pictures and stuff. No, you have to actually study, read it, like spend a lot more time consuming the information of that textbook, because that's how you're gonna learn something from it. A lot of artists make this mistake to just read through a book, like just glance through the words, but not actually take their time to consume, read, and let the information sit. The second mistake is expecting instant results. Like I mentioned, an art book is not the answer to all your problems. It's gonna take time, and sometimes you might have to even read that art book multiple times before you understand the concept. That's part of the process. Just like everything, you can't expect to get something and get instant results. Art is a practice that you need to continue to invest time and effort into. The next one is not applying what they learn. You read the art book and you're like, okay, I get it, I know what to do. And then you don't actually do any of that. While reading the art book, you should actually practice what you're reading constantly, because that's how you're gonna memorize it, and it's going to become second nature. If you're reading a workbook that kind of has exercises for you to participate, don't skip those exercises. Do them. Actually sit down with a notebook and write down all the things they're telling you to write, draw all the things they're telling you to draw, follow all those exercises step by step. The person who wrote the book didn't just write it for fancy. They wrote it because they know that's how you're going to improve. If you want to be strong-headed and you skip all of that, don't just I'm so sorry. Anyways, it's very important for you to follow all the exercises and follow along and practice everything you're learning. Another one is overloading of information. This is when you're trying to learn too many things at the same time. You buy 5 different art books on 5 different topics and you're trying to juggle all 5 topics at the same time. Brother, stop. You're not going to learn anything. It's best you focus on one art book, one topic as you go. And speaking of one art book, really take your time to focus on one chapter. Don't be skipping from one chapter to another. You want to learn chapter 1, but you're also interested in learning chapter 8. How are you going to read chapter 8 when you haven't read 5, 6? And the last one is not revisiting key concepts. Art books are not made for you to read just once and die on your shelf. No, please, no. It's always good to constantly revisit your art books when you feel like you've improved on your skill and you want to refresh your knowledge on a topic. Going back to revisit those topics, revisit those art books is a very good way of seeing it from a different perspective. Sometimes you might not understand something when reading it at the first time, but when you come back to give it a second go, with your skills improved, your knowledge more advanced, I guess, you're gonna see everything in a different light. I kid you not, it's gonna be a whole different experience when reading it. So always make sure you go back to revisit your old books, to revise them, to read them again and again and again, because that's the point of books. You don't just read it once, you have to read it over and over in order for it to stick. Now that we talked about some common pitfalls and misunderstandings when it comes to reading and studying with art books, I want to share my own process of picking art books, selecting art books, how I study with art books, and general tips that I have that have helped me in my art book studying journey, I guess. When it comes to choosing the right art books, I always just have a few things in mind. I only buy art books that focus on very specific topics rather than broad ideas. So for example, rather than buying an art book that says, learn how to draw, that's it, just how to draw, I would buy how to draw perspective or how to understand color theory, something more topic centric rather than broad and general. I feel like the broad and general art books, except for the really thick ones, the big boys, most of them kind of feel similar to YouTube videos to me, where they're trying to jam pack a bunch of information into one book. Don't get me wrong, these kind of books can be useful sometimes. If you're a general beginner and you don't know where to start, these kind of books can help you dip your toes into drawing. However, when you want to learn more on the fundamentals and improve your skills, then I recommend sticking to only art books that focus on specific topics like color, perspective, anatomy, and all that fun stuff. I also like setting goals for every art book I read. Before I even think of purchasing an art book, I first have to know what I want to improve on. So for example, I recently got a Morpho book that focuses on clothing and folds, but I didn't just buy that. Before even checking, I asked myself, what did I want to improve on? What was the problem and what is the solution I need? After knowing what the problem and the solution I want, then I went to check for art books that would give me that solution. During this process, it's just about reading reviews, looking at the artist and making sure the artist is a reliable artist, which is another thing you should pay attention to. Is this an artist that you want to get information from? And once you finally settle on it, make sure that it's a book that people are recommending and not just a book that, has AI art all over it. Be careful because they're out there. So a lot of them are out there right now. This next tip, I actually have an entire YouTube video talking about it that I made like 3 or 2 years ago. It's kind of outdated now. But I still stand by everything I say to this day. Basically, it's pairing an art book with a video resource, which I know it sounds contradictory to everything I said, but hear me out. As a visual person who does kind of like listening to things as well, I do enjoy watching a video or a course and then using the art book to expand my knowledge on that thing. I don't really want to go too deep into this because I feel like a lot of you have already watched that video, and if you haven't, I'll link it here, so please check it out. I basically explain more into detail. So yeah, I basically explain into more detail. I have a tendency to like switch my words. If you guys have noticed, I'm very sorry. I don't know why I do that. My brain just... I'm sorry. One thing that I really love doing, I don't think I see a lot of people doing the art community, is annotating my books. Like, this is very common in like book talk and booktube, annotating what you read. I annotate my art instructional books. I highlight my books. I use like sticky notes. I have these like transparent sticky notes and I write on top of it. I think it's very important because when you're reading, something can, pop up in your head and you can write them in a notebook externally, but I just think that's so much pressure. I mean, this is a textbook, I don't see anything wrong in writing on a textbook. Because I treat it like a textbook, Even my non-educational art books, I still annotate them. Though those ones I don't highlight them per se because I kind of don't want to do that. I think that's ruining the book. But for my instructional books, my educational books, I highlight the crap out of them. When it comes to art books, I am pro physical over digital. And I have a whole lot of emotions and opinions towards the whole physical versus digital media. I could make a whole video about it if you guys are interested. But specifically when it comes to art books, I think it's best to go physical when you can, as much as possible. I do know there are digital options out there, some that are maybe not even, the most responsible way to get your hands on them, but going physical is so much better. Not only are you supporting the artist, I think it's really nice to have that disconnect between your phone or your device and the book. When you're with your phone or you're reading on your device, you can easily get distracted. With a physical book, you kind of convince your mind that it's time to focus, it's time to study. So yeah, even though there can be a lot of pain when you're trying to move or travel or transport in general, books are heavy. But not only is it very beneficial for, that detachment, it also looks pretty on a shelf. Like, look at that. I don't know where I'll be without my bookshelf being my backdrop. It's just so pretty. And lastly, I just want to emphasize the importance between practicing and studying. Please don't fall into the habit of just collecting art books and studying and reading them without actually applying all that knowledge into your personal work. There's no point of improving your skills if you're not gonna use that, There's no point in learning and getting all that knowledge if you're not going to apply it to your work. It's very important that there's a fine balance between studying and actually applying your knowledge to your skills. I remember the first time I got my very first art book. It wasn't an art educational book, it was The Art of High Color. But I remember how much joy I felt just flipping through the pages and looking at all that artwork in person. There's really something about like holding a physical copy of art in your hands. As a digital artist, I barely ever get to see my work in physical form. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen my work in physical form. So there's this kind of wonder that I experience when I actually see artwork physically. It just feels so different. I am a huge art book enthusiast and I will forever continue to encourage other people to start art book collections and collect art books. There's just so much benefits to it. Honestly, this video was a love letter to art books because I absolutely love art books. Art books have helped me improve in my skills significantly. They have inspired me in so many different ways, and hopefully in the future I would absolutely love to. It's a dream, but I would love to have my own art book one day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.